Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us for a panel discussion with our strategic alliance partner, ProTech Services Group. Their experts will help us explore how to find someone's digital footprint, how you can control your digital footprint, and whether your digital footprint is good or bad. In this, our 42nd installment of our EO Exchange series. Many of you have met Amit Kanda, Chief Operating Officer, leading the engineering and operations team and all business development at ProTech Services Group. His 20 years of experience in technology, including working for Expedient, where he was responsible for business growth and expansion efforts in the Southeast region, and at Zio Bandwidth, formerly Memphis Networks, leading the first deployment of fiber to cell towers in the US. Amit received a Bachelor of Commerce from Delhi University and his postgraduate degree in business management from the All India Management Association in New Delhi, India. Fun fact, he represented school and state teams in both volleyball and badminton. Chris Bradley joined ProTech in 2010 and sets the technology direction for ProTech applications and infrastructure, in addition to architecting solutions for the businesses they manage and their cloud service offerings. He has 30 years of experience ranging from software development to operations management and is a graduate of Mississippi State University. Chris has held the longest seat to date on the Ingram Micro North American Cloud Services Advisory Board. He has authored white papers on electronic signatures on the I-9 immigration forms, which is now incorporated into the US Federal Register. Chris Yancey is the Security and Solutions Advisor for ProTech Services Group in Memphis. He provides end-user training for clients in online security awareness and various Microsoft Office 365 solutions. Chris conducts simulated phishing campaigns for several companies to educate users about the potential threats that can compromise entire organizations. Born and raised in Memphis, Chris is a graduate of both the University of Memphis and Christian Brothers University. He makes at least 2 visits a year, one being every Christmas to Walt Disney World. As a reminder to all of us on the Zoom, please put your questions in the chat, as Amit will be looking for them to work into the panel discussion. Gentlemen, we welcome you, all your expertise, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Very, very greatly appreciate it. And we are very honored, and it's our pleasure to do this presentation today. You know, in this day and age of cyber world that we all live in, and everything is digital, it is very important that we are secure. We understand what the digital footprint actually means, and what or how it can actually be used for both good and bad purposes. You know, there are bad actors out there. There are good actors out there as well. But however, the focus will be today's presentation. The focus will be to ensure that we can educate our members about how they can manage and prevent the bad actors from accessing or leveraging their digital footprint. ProTech Services Group, we are a managed IT service provider and a managed security service provider as well. So we are here to provide any IT-related services or guidance or help or assistance and education as well. And Chris Yancey is our resident expert who leads that program of education for us. So with that, I will hand it over to Chris Yancey.
Thank you, Amit. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation so everyone can hopefully see my screen. There we go. So thank you, everybody, for attending this session on managing your digital footprint. Like Amit just said, it's really important that everyone is aware of their digital footprint, whether it's good or bad, but we definitely want to focus a majority of this session this morning on making sure that you realize that there are the bad threat actors out there that are after your data, and what you can do in order to kind of manage your footprint. Everyone has a footprint, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but we want to just talk about some tools that you can use to effectively manage that. I think David and Amit have done a great job of both introducing me and ProTech. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get into the presentation about digital footprint. So exactly what is a digital footprint? Well, it's a digital trail of data that tracks your online activities. Your footprint consists of thousands of data points spread across different platforms. Every Google search, Facebook like, Amazon purchase that you make is part of your footprint. On their own, these small pieces of data don't really mean much, but when they're combined, they reveal a shockingly accurate picture of who you are. Nearly everyone who's used the internet has a digital footprint. There's no getting rid of it. If you've ever searched for a product on a site and seen ads on the same product for the whole week, then you've seen the effect of your digital footprint. It can feel kind of creepy at times. So what can people find out about you in your footprint? Well, everyone's footprint is different depending on how you use the internet. But in general, there are two types of online footprints that you need to be aware of: active and passive. So active digital footprints are made up of the data that you choose to share. This includes posting status updates on social media, uploading a video to YouTube. Your passive digital footprints are made up of data that you don't necessarily know that's being tracked. For example, almost every site you visit will collect information about your device, information about your IP address, where you click, how long you stay on a site. So this is the type of data that you don't necessarily see, but is still being tracked. Other types of data that make up your footprint could include shopping history, what you watch and listen to on Netflix or Spotify, social media likes, comments, updates, online search history, internet browser data, fitness and health data, if that's being, stored on your phone, newsletters, emails that you receive, private messages. That's a lot of potentially sensitive information that's easily accessible to anybody who's really looking for it. The most dangerous aspect of your digital footprint is that you don't necessarily know how big it is. Plus, with every app and site sharing information and keeping archives, none of us could eliminate our entire digital trail, even if we wanted to. This means, even parts of your life that you wanted to keep private could possibly be revealed online. So what are some of the specific dangers of having a big or a large online footprint? Well, it can reveal, religious and political affiliations about yourself. Your online reputation can be damaged. You could be possibly turned down for a loan. You could receive more spam emails or phone calls. Potential employers could get access to your personal and outdated info. And then criminals can also exploit your information for their personal or monetary gain. But finally, online footprints present a potential danger to children specifically. Unlike you and I, this generation now will live their entire lives with social media. So the digital footprints that they create now, not to mention the ones that their parents, will make for them on social media, will never, ever go away. So this puts them more at risk of child identity theft as more of their sensitive information becomes available.
Yeah, and Chris, if I may just,
please.
just make one point here is that we at ProTech, we also have a staffing division, and I can tell you that there are more and more employers who are starting to dig into the digital footprints of the employees that they want to bring on board. And some of the large enterprise organizations actually have a couple member teams that are dedicated to looking into what the digital footprint of the possible new hire could look like. So we have seen a sharp increase in that just over the last couple of years, especially coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, excellent point, Amit. Even when I'm talking to young kids with a volunteer group that I'm with through my fraternity, I'm always telling them to watch what they're doing on social media because, they may not be thinking about their future right now, but they definitely will at some point in time. And it's really important talking to our children, talking to, even college students, let them be aware that their digital footprint is out there. The things that they're posting today could possibly be found when they're trying to get that dream job. So excellent point, Amit, that all of these employers are really, really looking at your social media likes, your comments. Coaches are losing jobs, in schools and with organizations nowadays based on things that they've posted. So this stuff is really real. So we talked a lot about what your digital footprint is. The question is, why should you care about it? Hopefully, if some of those reasons that I haven't talked about haven't already jarred you, there's plenty of other reasons as well. But most of us realize that when we consciously share information on social media or upload pictures, we're losing some small degree of privacy. But we're less likely to think about footprints that we create, by simply searching the web, shopping online, enabling location services. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. So it's hard to manage something that you never see. So it's not uncommon for people to say, I have nothing to hide, so why should I care about my digital footprint? There's a lot of reasons, but the simplest one is that your digital footprints reveal a lot about you. They build up this detailed picture of your likes, your habits, and information that has commercial value. Our digital footprints are monetized by organizations with which we have no relationship and we really can't control sometimes. But it's not just yourself that you need to worry about. Are your coworkers logged into Facebook? Are your kids on Twitter? Are your parents on Google right now? If so, their visits are being tracked on any web page with a like, a tweet, or a +1 button. So, let's look at some of the other reasons that your digital footprints matter as well. While the reasons will differ depending on, your country and your culture, they're probably going to fall into one of 4 categories. Protecting your reputation, maintaining your ability to decide where and how your personal information is shared, preventing financial loss, and also preserving your freedom. So let's take a quick look at these 4 reasons right now. And hopefully you get the one in the middle. I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. But anyway, when it comes to protecting your reputation, even if you have nothing to hide, not everything about you is appropriate to every audience. Your digital footprint can be taken out of context and misinterpreted. If you search online for appeal against a speeding fine, and a third party could assume that your search is directly related to your own situation, whether that's the case or not, if you use a credit card or a debit card to pay the bar bill for a group of friends, and then later use that card to cover your parking costs, it could create the impression that you're driving after drinking, even if you were the designated driver for the evening. And a third party really is a third party really entitled to see that type of data and to draw those types of conclusions? So your reputation is all about social judgment. It's personal. It's tempered by forgiveness, forgetfulness, and you really can't rely on the internet for either one of those. So it's something to really think about. You may not have those types of intentions, but again, third parties are looking at that type of information and they'll make that inference for you. Deciding where and how your personal information is shared. Everyone has information that they only want to share in a specific context. You may share your medical information with your spouse or your family, but not necessarily your coworkers. In some countries, it may be important that your religious beliefs are known only to a few. There are probably circumstances under which you're comfortable sharing personal information with organizations through the internet, but wouldn't want that same data spread around. With today's tracking mechanisms, most internet users don't have the control to prevent that type of spread. There's no easy way on the internet to say to most forms of tracking, to say no to most forms of tracking, but it's certainly harder to say, you can share this, but not share that. Preventing financial loss, identity theft is a global issue. It's going to be one for the end of time almost. So as digital footprints are collected into larger databases, these thieves can obtain data in massive amounts, facilitating identity-related crimes. User authentication systems can add detail to these databases. For example, what is your pet's first name, or what street did you live on? Some of this information we may already be disclosing through social media without even thinking about it. So when this type of data gets hacked, it's easier for criminals to impersonate others for financial gain.
Yeah, and Chris, again, I just want to make one point here, about the personal financial losses. keeping aside the business hacks that happen, and we will be happy to share some of that information because that's staggering amount. But we have some agencies, including the FBI, that we work very closely with, and just on the personal financial loss front, just in the US alone, last year, the personal financial loss was, excuse me, a little in excess of $5 billion. And the FBI is saying that it's on track to be about 7 this year, and possibly we will cross 10 billion next year. And this is just on the personal front, not at an organizational level. So the numbers can add up very quickly. Excuse me. Sorry. Also, it's very alarming that the majority of the cases where this financial loss occurs are either in the elderly group or in the teenage group, where parents put in their credit card information and gaming consoles and things like that, and kids just, they want to buy that next skin on Fortnite or something, and they don't understand and realize what they're clicking on or agreeing to, and the next thing you know, there's $1,000 charge that you don't know what it's all about.
All excellent point, valid points. Excellent. Maintaining your freedom is the next one. Your digital footprints can also affect your freedom to express yourself a lot of times. So many governments will routinely track social media sites, instant messaging services, chat rooms. So surveillance software could be used to intercept communications to and from, say, human rights activists. And this has resulted in some cases of arrest. Just recently, there were some mobile phone users in Kiev who received a text message saying, "Dear subscriber, you've been registered as a participant in a mass riot." And this was all based on the location of their phones, not necessarily whether they were there or what they were doing. So law enforcement action based on this kind of inference comes with a lot of high risk and injustice. So anything you do or say online has the potential to live forever. If you use the internet, it's impossible to have no digital footprint at all. There are, however, things that can be done to reduce your digital footprint. Number one thing that you can do is try Googling yourself. Contact websites and ask them to remove anything unfavorable. One tip could be that you set up a Google alert for every time that your name is mentioned online. So, if there is information out there that's about you, you can receive a Google alert every time something is mentioned about you online. Number two, you could manage your social media privacy settings. Ensure that only the people that you trust have access to your social media accounts. Be aware that anything that's shared on your profile can be reshaped without your consent. Number three, you definitely want to create strong passwords. Talk about this all the time, or even better yet, passphrases. And we'll talk about that in a second. You never want to share your passwords with anyone else at all. You don't want to write your passwords down. You definitely don't want to use anything like the street that you grew up on, or your anniversary or a birth date, anything personal as your password. And I just mentioned passphrases. So let me talk about this just for a quick second, because I really think this is important. You could use the most complicated password in the world, like the one up here, and think that you're, in the clear. But the truth is you're making it extremely easy for the hacker. They're using sophisticated software, running about 1,000 guesses per second. And it's actually going to take, as problematic as that password looks, it's going to take about 3 days for them to crack it. And then the thing is it's extremely difficult for you to remember this particular password because it does look so problematic. So what the FBI did is they did a study and they said, you know what, instead of using passwords, we should be using passphrases, just taking 4 words totally unrelated and stringing them together to make a just one password. But it's going to be extremely easy for the user because you can make up a story in your head about it. Maybe it's something funny that your kid says all the time, something that just sticks in your head. But for whatever reason, the same software that it takes 3 days to guess that troubadour password at the top, for correct horse, battery, and staple to be put together, it takes 550 years for that same software that these hackers are using to guess that particular passphrase. So it seems like passphrases are the way to go. So consider using those when it comes time to update your passwords. Number five, number four, you definitely want to log out of all websites once you finish them. You know, we have a really bad habit of just closing the browser or just leaving the browser open and just leaving sites open. But especially if you're using a shared computer, you're at work, you're at a public library, definitely want to log out of that site as soon as you're done using it. You know, make sure you delete or deactivate any unwanted accounts. Or you're still going to be out and you still be visible to other people. Number five, you want to read the terms and conditions. I know that's a lot of information to read a lot of times, but just scan over it, read those terms and conditions. You know, if you're serious about reducing your footprint, know exactly what it is that you're agreeing to before you hit that agree button. And when it comes to hitting buttons, number six, you want to be cautious about checking that box that says you want to opt into third-party communications. You don't know who those third parties are. You don't know what types of data is being shared to that third party. So please make sure when you're signing up for things or you're online, you want to uncheck that box that says that you want to, opt into any third party communications. If you've opted in but change your mind, make sure you unsubscribe or opt out later on. Number seven, make up false information. You know, if it's just a site you're just trying to gain information to and they're asking a lot of info like your gender, your date of birth, things like this, hey, in order to throw it off, there's nothing wrong with making up info. If you don't want to give away your personal information to this site, then don't. You also can download a plugin to leave misleading footprints about you. So that false data actually weakens your real data and makes it harder for algorithms out there to really understand. So think about that. And there's nothing that's out there. If it's just a one-time site or site that you want to use temporarily, there's no law out there that says you have to actually put your real birth date out there. Number eight, be cautious, before you click. Clickbait is so common in today's society. You'll see all types of headlines out there that say top 10 this, or, if I've got this amazing new, recipe for this, or this cure for this. So don't be fooled by these surveys that pop up either. Remember, in the end, somebody's collecting that data on the other end of that survey. So be really careful about what it is you're sharing out there and be really careful about what it is you're clicking on. Number nine, you want to make sure you're clearing your cookies regularly to remove your data and prevent sites from tracking and targeting you. Number 10, think twice about what you post online. It can't always be easily erased. Always tell this to people. Don't post things about others that you wouldn't want to be posted about you. And also remember that negative posts online could affect your future career. Amit mentioned that in detail just a second ago. Employers are out there searching you. So please be careful about what it is you're posting. But number 11, get some positive vibes going. There is such a thing as a positive digital footprint. You want to use your footprint to create a favorable personal profile. Think blog posts, fundraising pages, sharing articles on interesting subjects, content that employers would actually be impressed by when they search your name online. Remember that what you put out there is permanent and can reveal a lot about you. So now that you're aware of some of these ways and that you're leaving a digital trail online, the next step is to keep your reputation positive and your data secure. So in closing, I'll leave you with this last thought. What does your digital footprint say about you? So on behalf of ProTech Services Group, I want to thank you for allowing me to share with you all today, and I will give it back to you all.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I see there, maybe a couple of questions. I just want to mention a few more things again. Hopefully this was educational. We didn't want to make this like a scare tactic by any means. So what this does not mean that everybody go hide in a tunnel somewhere and turn off your cell phones and computers. But it's a real threat, and a lot of people, not just individuals, but even organizations which we deal with on a daily basis, just try to play ignorance to be like, oh, we are too small, or we are too big, or, well, your grandparents, like, who wants their information? But it's all relevant. You do not know how the pieces of the puzzles are being put together on the back end by these threat actors. I have 3 teenage boys, and I will tell you, almost on a daily basis, my conversation with them is, no, Snapchat does not disappear in 15 seconds. People take screenshots, people do all kinds of other things. So all this silliness is great. You want the kids to have fun. It's good, but just be mindful of what you're doing, right? Having a little bit of fun and craziness, it's all good, but when do you cross the line of being fun versus being a bully and things like that? And those things matter a lot. And the school systems are paying very close attention to the digital footprints of the kids. And I can tell you from a personal experience is, before the schools closed this year, I got an email from one of the teachers in my kids' class saying that there was some incident about some bullying online, and they wanted the parents to get together and address it. So just want to put it out there that be mindful that everybody's looking at it, whether it's the organizations, whether it's the school systems. Top of it, Uncle Sam, yes, the government is always looking and listening. So it adds up. So the idea here is not to create a panic, but to really educate and just be a little mindful of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what could possibly be the impact of that in the near future, or maybe even in the distant future.
Is it okay if I address that question a bit?
Oh, yes. I didn't know if David wanted to kind of take the questions one by one.
Yeah. I'll let David handle all that.
We just go down and start addressing those questions.
Yeah.
So, David, is it okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that first one was, what are your thoughts on password managers like LastPass and Dashlane? Love password managers for several reasons. One of the biggest reason that I love password managers is that by humans, we're lazy. And, if you look at your phone and you count up the number of apps that are on your phone, I mean, there's at least 50 to 100 logins that you're keeping up with on a daily basis. And sometimes, if you're in tech, like Chris and Amit and I, you and David, and I'm sure a lot of you all, probably more than 100 logins that you've really got out there. For every one of those logins, you have to have a username and a password. Are you using 100 different passwords? Are you using that one trusty password that you've got for everything out there? And a lot of times, we're not going to try to keep up with 100 different passwords for 100 different accounts. It's not going to happen. So we've got that one password. Our Netflix password is our Disney Plus password, is our Hulu password. That's probably not a problem, but the problem comes is that your mobile banking password? Is that your PayPal password? Is that your Amazon password? Is that my Protect password? Is that your employer's password? So that's the danger, is that, if, let's take Grubhub got hit with a data breach, some years back. And you probably don't think much about that, but is your Grubhub password the same as your password at work? If that's the case, huge problem, because that key that hacker got away with, he's not just going to order pizzas. He's interested in getting into your other accounts as well. He knows where you live, so he's going to try it on every mobile banking site, in the Mid-South area or the Nashville area. If he finds out where you work, probably not hard to do, just a quick search on LinkedIn, he's going to try it on your work account. So it's really important to have different passwords for those sensitive accounts. And the best way to keep up with that is going to be a password manager. I personally use LastPass. So I'm not endorsing them at all, but I do endorse using some type of password management system, even if it's just, you use Chrome and Chrome is asking you, hey, do you want me to store this password? Or I know that Apple has gotten in on the fray now. Nowadays, when you sign up for a new site on Apple, you'll get that pop-up at the bottom that says, do you want me to create this password for you? So all these types of password management programs, I think, are a huge plus. because some of them will even create complex passwords for you. So huge fan of those.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I'm sure, we have a couple of points. The second one was if you had just one tip to tell your college student, what would it be? I will tell you, we all three of us, Chris and myself, we are on different advisory councils. I'm on the advisory panel for University of Memphis. And the one thing that I very often and regularly say to the college students is that do not live under this impression that sites like Snapchat, and I know there are a couple of other social media sites out there, that things disappear. No, they will not. Be very, very, very mindful of what you are putting online, because you are on the cusp of stepping out into the real world where you are going to look for employment and the employers are looking. So just be very mindful of what you post online, because it's there to stay forever and it can be pulled up at any point in time. I don't know if Chris want to add anything to that.
Yeah, that's
Exactly
it.
what I was going to say is I don't think when you're that age, you don't generally think about what you're taking pictures when you're out at a party or doing stuff. The downside is that does last forever. And, when you want to have a political career, or you want to move up somewhere and you get a better job or attain, high management positions, stuff like that can absolutely ruin your career at some point in the future. And I know you don't think about it when you're 20 years old, but it does. It comes back to haunt you. And it's really important that they understand that up front. I mean, it's something that, I've talked with my sons about is, you got to be careful, not only about you taking pictures, but who else is taking pictures around you, because they may not be as secure as you might choose to be when you're out having fun and, goofing off. It's really one of those things. It's just dangerous because the stuff will last, like Amit said, it just lasts forever.
Yeah, thank you. Is there something that can be done if there is false or damaging information posted out there? So yes, I will start here and then I'll let Chris, step in as well. But yes, you can reach out to those sites. You can send a note to their support team and request that information be pulled out. Now, how fast will it be done, or will it be done in the most appropriate and accurate manner? That just depends on who you are requesting it to. Here recently, there has been a big wave of requests being sent to Facebook where, site pictures have been manipulated and different false accounts have been created. We do know that from a business standpoint, LinkedIn is very good about it. Their support team is very good. They jump on it right away and they try to help. Social media sites are different. They make you accept those things like Chris was talking about, those agreements that you see and we all click on, we don't read through it. So it depends, but yes, you can send in a request to their support teams and they are supposed to take action on it. And Chris, you have any more input?
I don't. Those are the things that I'm familiar with as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's pretty much it.
All right. Tell us more about accepting cookies, please. It seems like nearly every website requires that we click. So yes, every website will accept, will ask you to accept their cookies. And what you can do is now it is being mandated that you will see that there are now pop-ups that say accept all cookies and accept the essential cookies. The essential cookies, our recommendation is to accept the essential cookies, where they will track just the basics from a standpoint of how long you have been on their website, what information you were looking at, what you were downloading. That's some of the basic information that is allowed even by the regulatory standards that they can track. What you can say no to is tracking any of your personal information or correlating and selling it to a third party. So those are the things that you want to avoid. And again, I know Chris Bradley has some more insight into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely, I have personally found that in many cases, you'll see very little degradation of performance in those if you just reject cookies. Oddly enough, it doesn't seem to have as much of effect. So many times I'll make the choice just to reject all cookies and see what happens. And if that I do lose functionality, then go back for the essentials. But yeah, you do have the ability nowadays. They have to disclose that. And I certainly suggest that. And there's also, as Chris showed earlier in the presentation, you can go into your browser and make sure that it goes in there and pops up if it's going to try to drop cookies that are doing, cross-site tracking and things like that. Just a good security practice as you do your browsing.
All right, thank you. What are your thoughts about the password management for things that you have to be shared? For example, I have to share my Zoom password with my assistant and other staff. I'll let Chris Bradley address that as well.
Yeah, number one is we don't recommend it. Shared passwords, just obviously never a good idea. And I don't know that there's really a great way to do it. If you have to share passwords, my suggestion is to make sure you rotate those on a regular basis, at least once a month. That way, if somebody is, for some reason, happens to say, well, I used your password, I had to write it down, and then I lost a piece of paper and it gets lost, you're no more than 30 days out from being in a change. And if you know they lost it, then certainly change it at that point. As always, it's always a best practice not to use shared passwords in many businesses that have any kind of regulatory compliance, that it's deeply frowned upon or forbidden. And there's a reason for that. So my suggestion is if you absolutely can find another way of doing it, find that other way. If you have to, make sure you're rotating the password regularly. If you don't share very often, but only have to share occasionally, consider rotating the password shortly after you're finished using it for whoever you're sharing it with.
Yeah, and another just tip is, and I know it's not the best way and it's inconvenient, but use two-factor authentication wherever possible. So yeah, even if you have to share that password, if your assistant has to log in, you will get at least that text to say, hey, you have to validate that number. Again, it is an inconvenience, but it's just a measure that can at least avoid just being hacked and not knowing about it, right? So it's a mechanism for you to also know that, okay, your assistant was logging in again. It's not about having control. It's just about making sure that you are aware. It's more awareness that, yes, your assistant is logging in, or whoever you shared the information is logging in. So
yeah, Brian Krause actually in the chat just shared with us that LastPass, that password management program we were just talking about, will allow you to share a password with another LastPass user, and they don't get to see the password. So it would allow them to log into that Zoom platform. So that might be something that whoever posed that question, I'm sorry, Chris, who posed that question, would actually, that might be a fix, Chris. If you and your assistant are both LastPass users, so to speak, you could create a password and your assistant would not know what the password is, but you could share it securely with her and she could then log into the Zoom account. So that might be a fix. So thank you for that, Brian.
How about applications such as Bark and other similar, which collect systematically information about users to help parents track the activity for kids and things like that? Are they trustable, that they will protect such data? And is it legal to use similar apps when employees using company VPNs while we try to protect customer information? A couple of different aspects real quick. It's very hard for us to comment on if it is legal to use similar apps, because there are so many regulatory and compliance requirements for different organizations, different verticals, different groups. So that's very broad. I don't want to mention anything as a blanket statement. So what my recommendation would be that you work with your internal organization to figure out what their compliance and regulatory requirements may be. Because we know we work with government agencies, we work with financial organizations, we work with medical organizations, and throughout that, it's very different. So that's one point there. Can you trust those applications that they will not share, that they will protect such data? I hate to say this, but short answer is no. You don't know who the parent company is. Also, where it gets really tricky for us, and I want to mention this, is that you download those apps and you agree to certain terms and conditions on those apps. And sometimes it's kind of like, hey, we will share this information with our parent company. A lot of the parent companies may be companies that are not even here in the US. They may be out in China, they may be out in Europe. And what laws they have to abide by are very different from the US laws. So as much as I hate to say this, but there is no guarantee that they will protect that data.
I think that's fair. And also, I mean, I think that, that there's no guarantee that they won't get hacked and that information won't get disclosed. We see that happen quite a bit. These smaller companies that have built these applications that are very specific, they do. As we always say, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And when they do, you never know what they're going to be, what will have released or not. So to Chris's point earlier, read the contract, read what it actually says about what they do with that data, but also just understand that, yes, they are tracking the things in order to provide better information to parents, but the same thing, wherever the kids are going, they're being tracked by other people as well, just as we've talked about all day. So I think that's something that you really have to kind of take into consideration, is that there's really no bulletproof. There's no company that's unhackable. So if it does happen, there's always that potential of that data being released.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Real quick, somebody posted, Tom, thank you so much, about the kids being the biggest concern. Yes, absolutely. Kids and elderly, those are the two age groups where we get constant information from the FBI that those groups are the one that are being targeted the most. And with AI, earlier there was this whole concern of, and I'm not trying to make light of the situation, is that, hey, somebody pretending to be a guy or a girl is completely an old guy sitting in a basement somewhere trying to, reach out to the kids. Yes, absolutely. While that was one threat actor, with AI, it's very easy to create multiple avatars. I mean, in a matter of minutes, forget hours or days. And then those avatars, using generative AI, using machine learning, really pretend as real humans. And the kids don't know the difference, and they are interacting with those bots, chat bots. And again, so the biggest thing here is education and having that constant conversation, right? Whether it's once a week, we recommend as often as possible. And also there are things, tools, softwares that you can install even in personal homes, where it will give you some kind of a tracking on what sites the kids are on, how long they are staying on those sites, or what applications they are using. So there are definitely some softwares out there that can be deployed even at the home front. Is cybersecurity insurance a good idea for businesses? Absolutely, 100%. I really would beg any business, if you do not have cybersecurity insurance, you need to maybe even get off this call and make that call. Because and again, not trying to be a scare tactic. It's not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of when it will happen. And when that happens, what is your liability, and who can come after you, and to what extent you can protect your business. Absolutely, it is very, very important that you please go and get cyber insurance. Do you have recommendations for a cybersecurity insurance company? We work with a few. We always can make recommendations.
Amit, I also put our SAPs just right under that question.
There you go. So there you go. Yes, we can always make recommendations, but there, Samira put out two there. So please reach out to them. And like I said, I would have that conversation today.
What all does cybersecurity insurance cover? I mean, I assume it covers, if I have to like pay a ransom or to get things unfrozen and cost for tax. Does it also cover if somebody hacks into my bank account and steals money? Does it cover that?
So the cybersecurity insurance for business is different from cybersecurity insurance for your personal. The personal insurance has to be covered separately. So it will not, if somebody hacks into your office account and through that hacks into your personal account and takes money away, your personal account is not protected under that. The cybersecurity insurance for business will only cover your business risk is from a standpoint of what you may or may not have to pay for ransom, plus any additional losses that may happen to your other partners, vendors, clients, because if a hacker has hacked into your organization, they've probably hacked into or obtained information regarding your clients, regarding your vendors, regarding your partners, and that could result in a hack for them. And if that happens and they can trace it back, then again, depending on what kind of coverage you get, the cybersecurity insurance will help you pay for those losses. For personal, I know there are some programs out there. I don't know, Chris, if you have any thought on, what those might be.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with any of them personally.
Yeah, if your personal accounts are secured by the FDIC, depending on which bank you bank with, I know there are banks that have a limit of 500,000. There are banks that have limits of 1 million, and then you can request certain extended programs that the banks offer. I know Discover Card has a separate program they offer where you can extend it all the way to 5 million. And I know Wells Fargo has a separate program. And then there are some other private organizations out there that offer specialized insurance to cover personal losses.
So I'm bad. I'm pretty good about for anything financial logging out, but Indeed.com, for hiring, I'm going to it, 4, 5, 6 times a day, sometimes more than that. And I don't log out of Indeed.com. Tell me what risk I'm taking, just for that one app.
Huge. If you're not logging out, what happens is that you're leaving that session wide open, right? So what a lot of times these hackers have become so sophisticated that they're not going to drop in and completely take over your machine, right? Yes. Can they do that? Absolutely. But they are dropping these small nuggets where they are waiting and just collecting bits and pieces of information every single hour or every single day. And then over a period of 3 or 4 months, they will start putting that information together. And where it could only, let's just say that they hacked in one time, got control of your computer, they may have been able to steal information just about one bank. But over the time period, if they are just sitting there gathering information about you, they have enough information that they will be able to hack into your bank accounts, your 401k, your financial, whoever if you have an investment portfolio. So that's the risk that you're taking, is that over a time period, they collect enough information from those active sessions that they can piece it all together and can really make a big impact.
So if I've got a unique password for that, and even if there's no interaction that talks about those things, just through Indeed.com, they can hack into my computer and find other things.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. It's a live session, and all it takes is for them to gain access, and they can slowly start gathering that information. For the VPN, again, Chris, I'll rely on you. Recommendations for VPN for mobile and for any specific other VPNs.
Sure. In this case, it kind of depends on what you're doing, but one of the benefits today is there's been a big push for all web traffic to be secured. So it's very rare that you'll find one that doesn't already have a secured. But if there's any chance that you're going in to an office, if you're trying to actually get data from your office, then yes, a VPN should be required. Obviously, it shouldn't be open. But just general browsing, you'll see a lot of them. Like I think NordVPN is the one that kind of touts it a lot. But one of the advantages to that is that you get end-to-end encryption between your device, phone, your own personal computer, directly to one of their points of service. And what that does is, of course, that also adds some security on that end of the service, but it makes sure that you don't end up with what's called a man in the middle. It happens a lot, especially if you're at home. It's not as big of a deal. It's not going to happen as often. But if you're at Starbucks or you're at the mall or you're at the airport, oftentimes you'll hop on a free Wi-Fi. Well, it turns out that's not actually given out by the airport or by Starbucks. Somebody has put an actual device in there to make it look like it's theirs. You hop on that network. If the data that you're passing is not encrypted, everything that goes across it, they can skim right off of it. So if you go into something, put your username and password, they skim it, they grab it, they've got it. Now they've got your username and password to whatever. So it is, I mean, it's a great practice. There's certainly a good case for it. And if it's something that you can do, I would certainly consider it. There's so many of them out there now that have popped up. Just make sure you find one that you feel is reputable and you're comfortable with. But yeah, that's mainly where I think it focuses on. And if you're a traveler, you do a lot of traveling and you have to hop on hotel Wi-Fi, you have to hop on Starbucks Wi-Fi or airport Wi-Fi. They're really good at that. They're really good at putting what's called a pineapple out. I don't know why they call it a pineapple, but they do. But they call it a pineapple, and all it is, it's a Wi-Fi access point that looks like it belongs to Starbucks or the airport. And you log on to it and you never know because it looks like it's working. Everything goes straight to the internet as it's supposed to. But at the whole time, it's sitting there collecting data between everything that you're talking to and from the network with. By enforcing that VPN connection from your device, whatever it is, through that, even if you're connected to one that is skimming data, it's not going to be able to see anything because that connection is encrypted with a VPN. So yeah, I would certainly recommend it. Nord's probably one of the bigger ones, but there's lots of companies that have them. So really, it's kind of just up to you what you want to pay for it and what other benefits you may get from it.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. Nord is one that we recommend. Again, it's kind of one of the leading ones, and their systems are pretty well protected, and it seems to be having a lot of success protecting the information as well. Is it better to jump on your own hotspot? Yes, absolutely. The more you use public access, the more are your chances of being hacked, because you don't know who's controlling that public, who's monitoring it, who's behind it. You just don't know. So yes, the more you can use your own data, the iPads and some of the other mobile devices come with data plans. So the more you are on your own data network on your own devices, the better your chances are of preventing any such hack. I have been using private internet access for a while now when in public Wi-Fi in different countries. So far, good. Yeah. So again, keep in mind is that when you log into any of the open, just even when you're going to the hotel, right? Most hotels have just this open where you put in your last name or first name and room number and all, it connects you. A lot of organizations use protective software. Like we use a number of software applications that will protect our devices, even if they are on public internet. So talk to your organization, see if they have those tools and feature sets or softwares already installed. If not, if it's just your personal device, again, the recommendation is to not log into these open access points. If you have to, use a VPN.
So it looks like we've gone through the questions, a lot of great questions. And I think this is very helpful. People who weren't on the very early part, even though these guys are in Memphis, Amit, Chris, they love coming to Nashville to talk to our forums. And so please keep them in mind. Guys, we really appreciate it. This was scary and very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you again. Like I said, don't mean to create a scare tactic, but please, certain things, just be very mindful, protect yourself, and just be aware of just like we say, be aware of your surroundings, just be aware of your digital footprint. And again, just as a last point, I would say again, the two most sought after groups are the children and the elderly. So please talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, and talk to your kids, at least once a week. See what they're going. Just be mindful and aware of where they are and what they're clicking on. Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you, Amit, Chris, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
so much.
Thank y'all.